What if I told you that humans once planned to build something so monumentally ambitious that it would have fundamentally altered the physics of our entire planet? Something so vast that if it had worked, you would see it from space. And not just see it, feel its effects every single day of your life. We're not talking about some sci-fi fantasy. This actually happened, and the reason we abandoned it might surprise you more than the project itself. In the 1970s, Soviet engineers had an idea. Not just any idea, an idea so audacious that it makes the Panama Canal look like a backyard project. They wanted to reverse the flow of a river so massive that it would have redirected water away from an entire inland sea and sent it somewhere else entirely. But here's where it gets wild. This wasn't some fringe proposal from a crazy scientist working in his garage. This was seriously planned, budgeted, almost funded. It was called the Siberian Water Diversion Project, and it might be the most ambitious engineering failure you've never heard about. Let's start with the problem they were trying to solve. The Aral Sea was dying. And when we say dying, we mean catastrophically, visibly, irreversibly dying. Picture this, a body of water the size of Belgium, just vanishing, shrinking, becoming saltier by the year. By the 1960s, the Soviet Union had diverted so much water from the rivers feeding the Aral Sea for irrigation in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan that the entire ecosystem was collapsing. The sea was shrinking by the year. Fisheries that employed hundreds of thousands of people were disappearing. The whole region was becoming an ecological disaster. And the Soviet solution? Don't fix the irrigation system. Don't be reasonable. Don't implement a practical, small-scale solution. No. Instead, reverse the flow of the Ob River, the Siberian Ob River, one of the largest rivers in the world, and redirect approximately 60 cubic kilometers of water per year, roughly the volume of 20 million Olympic swimming pools annually, southward across thousands of kilometers to save the Aral Sea. Now, let's talk about what this actually meant. This wasn't just digging a canal. This was a project so complicated that it makes modern megaprojects look like sandbox engineering. They would need to build an unprecedented system of dams, canals, and pumping stations stretching across an entire continent. The main canal alone would be thousands of kilometers long. Some versions of the plan involved literally reversing the flow of one of the world's mightiest rivers, using a series of dams and locks that had never been built before at that scale. The estimated cost? Between 25 to 60 billion rubles. In 1980s money, that was roughly $40 to $100 billion. To give you perspective, that's more than what the entire Soviet space program spent to put humans on the moon. Actually, wait, the Soviet Union never put humans on the moon, but this project would have cost more than if they had. And here's the really insane part. It almost happened. The project wasn't rejected because it was impossible. It wasn't rejected because it was obviously a terrible idea, though it absolutely was. It was rejected because of letters. Actual physical letters. In 1986, a group of prominent Soviet intellectuals, including scientists, writers, and cultural figures, published an open letter in a major Soviet newspaper. They detailed what would happen if you reversed a river the size of the Ob. The climate would change dramatically in Siberia and Western Europe. You'd shift weather patterns across an entire hemisphere. Permafrost would destabilize. Ecosystems that took millions of years to develop would be destroyed in a matter of years. They basically said, yes, you might save the Aral Sea, but you'd potentially destroy everything else. And the really fascinating part, they were right. We now know, with sophisticated climate models we have today, that reversing the Ob River would have had catastrophic effects that nobody in the 1970s could have fully predicted. It would have shifted precipitation patterns across Siberia, Europe, and the Arctic. It might have altered monsoon patterns in Asia. The ecological consequences would have rippled across the globe in ways that would have taken decades to fully understand. But here's what's even more interesting. The engineers weren't wrong about their ability to build it. Given enough resources and time, the Soviet Union probably could have engineered this. The problem was that the scale of potential consequences was just too enormous to predict. They were staring at a project where even success would have been a form of failure, so they abandoned it. The project was officially shelved in 1986, and the Aral Sea? It continued to shrink. It's now about the size of a third of what it was in 1960. Entire cities that were once bustling ports are now surrounded by a toxic desert of exposed seabed. The environmental catastrophe that the diversion project was meant to solve continued anyway. But here's the thing that keeps engineers and scientists up at night about this story. What if they had built it? What if, in an alternate timeline, Cold War ambition and Soviet engineering had prevailed? We'd likely have a completely different climate in the Northern Hemisphere right now. We might have prevented one environmental disaster while creating several others that we didn't even know about until it was too late. This is why the Siberian Water Diversion Project matters. It's not just a fascinating historical what-if, it's a case study in the limits of human engineering. We can build almost anything if we have enough resources and will. The question is whether we should. And sometimes, the most ambitious engineering project isn't the one you complete, it's the one you stop yourself from starting. So what project do you think is the most ambitious thing humanity is working on right now? And more importantly, how do we know if we're about to build something that will seem obviously catastrophic to people 100 years from now? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to learn about other massive engineering projects, ones that actually got completed and some that probably should have stayed on the drawing board, stick around. There's always another video waiting.